this the darkest Indian people. Y'all, I personally now know that everything that we've been told is a lie, and it's a misdirect. The Olmecs are the gorilla beings that I'm in contact with. They're not gorillas, they're a being. It's a being that we've seen. It's been demonized, it's been marginalized, it's been connected. They told us that's what we come from, but they may have not been wrong. They may have not been wrong. It's not monkeys. There's a sub-tier monkey that's more hybrid, more human, more mankind-like, but the gorillas are something different. And if you look at the beings over in French Polynesia, y'all, it will make so much, they're giants and they have what considered to be ape-like qualities, what you called a gorilla kind of quality. You know, with the extended head, you know, ever see like the little bit bumped head like the gorilla has like this? How come a lot of children, brown children, come out with that coned head, especially back in the days? You see like people like Usher, who had that, you know, that kind of elonged head. They call them the tetras. They'll say they're tetra beings. The tetras have that like that coned head. Also, you'll hear a conversation with people like with LL Cool J. Remember if you know LL Cool J? Many of you know LL Cool J. Remember LL Cool J used to wear the Kango all the time, and we knew it's because he was hiding his cone head. You know what I mean? He was cute back in the days, but he always wore that. He never took his Congo hat. Those may be some sort of sim-tier group that still has a lot of that genetic quality from that group. And many children, especially children from the Afrocentric, I don't want to say African because Africa is somewhere different, but really in itself, we might be correct because maybe this is Africa. This is Egypt. And we're going to talk about the 10-2 and P. Diddy coming out with the list, what's going on, the 4 X's that literally could be 410. We're going to kind of talk about that, but let's keep on the same thing. LL Cool J had the cone head. A lot of brown children that are born. I remember when all of our babies, and I think but Lunars did not, let me ask Lunars. Lunars, I don't know if had that same quality of having more of a cone head, because when our children were born, we were always told to shape the head because of the, the birthing path, the birthing path. Sometimes children have the elonged head from going through a narrow canal when you're giving birth to them, right? But remember, a lot of us, but I noticed with my lunar girlfriends that had children, and that's why I want to ask you, my lunar girlfriends that had children, they didn't really have that much of an issue. Like all of my brown girlfriends that gave birth even before I had children, they all were told to, lunars are what you perceive as white people. I don't call people white and black because it's silly. It's not. Lunar is kind of like a lighter skin, illuminated skin, and melanated people or brown people, I call them by the complexion. I'm more of a copper color. Calling people by white and black is like it's doing the checkerboard thing that the Illuminati force upon us, and the whole duality, polarity thing. I kind of spread it apart a little bit, make it a little more respectful. When we talk about the concept of brown babies when they're born, you see that a lot of times they have the head that's kind of coned. And I realized my brown girlfriends and my lunar girlfriends, the lunar girlfriends didn't have that issue. So now I have to retract the statement, y'all, because now I realize that Willy Wonka and his League of Doom, these tyrants of information, these Nazis that are literally some form of some sub-tier humanoid or AI-based humanoid mankind that has created these narratives to basically hide an origin of beings. And it wasn't until I went to Brazil, y'all, that I could put all these pieces together. Because you say to yourself, this is why experience trumps reading books and just taking things from other people's opinion and videos. That's why I always tell you, stop watching videos. Even when you watch mine, you do the research. The reason why I'm able to get all of this information and bring it all together is because I travel a lot. So I get a lot of experience. I read a lot of books, so I get a lot of reference. I came from a field of genetics and heredity, so I have a lot of that clinician background. And then I have a lot of friends that work in a lot of different types of fields, so I can bring that information. That's why wisdom is gained through a lot of different aspects, not just one. You can't look at videos and verify. You always have to do the work. If I hadn't traveled to Brazil and experienced the obvious distance that the monkeys came from me, why would they do that? Because if I was an ape-type being, wouldn't they be more connected to me? No, but if I came from a galactic sector where those beings were higher in ranking, they would keep a distance out of respect and protection. Y'all, I'm here to tell you that the gorilla type beings, they're here. That's why all of this lexicon of monkey business, monkeypox, maybe they were putting the DNA inside those people to make them more appeasing to what's coming here. Why do I think they're here? Because all of a sudden, that information was released inside of me. It was all released. The Omex, the Sasquatch, the Bigfoot, the Chewbacca, the M'Baku. When I saw M'Baku, and that's why I say, oh, I'm asking you, can someone get, obrigado, I know. Can I get someone to, sea monkeys? Oh, we're gonna go into that too. The sea monkeys and the underwater. Remember they told you like the monkeys, the sea monkeys that come from the mermaids? This is all interconnected. But can I get someone to get me the picture? M'Baku has a scene. I cannot get it. They hid it. I think that's why I felt such an attraction. I know that it triggered me, a memory, and I think when it did that, they took out that scene. I can't find it. I probably have to watch the movie again, and I tried to take pictures, they've taken it out. There's a scene when M'Baku is inside of his lair, his castle, and it's an opening of a mouth of an ape. And on the bottom, the ape is holding it up like this, like you see in Cambodia, like in gold, but the mouth is open as ice. I cannot find that scene, y'all. Can someone get a picture of that? Y'all, I know that's what triggered me, because when I saw the scene with M'Baku, I literally felt like that was the man of my dreams. I know it's crazy, y'all. And you're saying, oh, Fleur, when you're over the top. It's like the male in my life that I've been connected to or expecting or attracted to, he comes from that background. I know it for a fact. I haven't ever watched any movie like that. I haven't ever seen a show like that. Even with Planet of the Apes, I didn't really have the connection, but it was that scene when M'Baku was sitting in his chair, in his crown seat, and the mouth of the gorilla is seen. It's like a scene. It's like icy, and he's wearing like the fur of the monkey on him, and he's in there and he's sitting in a seat. Y'all, if I could not tell you any difference, because I'm very particular about males, but I like males that are very strong and assertive and have that burly kind of behavior, like they can do what he does. That attraction was it was like a trigger. And I realized now that that was what literally I was feeling. It was a crystal. It was a crystal, look crystal, yes. Twinton, it was ice, maybe it was crystal. You might be right. It was a crystal mouth of the opening scene. Can someone find that? Because I could not find it. That was what triggered me to be attracted. It was like a whole thing, everything together. But what I'm gonna go back into, why are they covering up the Olmec heads? Why in the movies that we're watching are literally the Olmecs who have the same thing, the wider noses, the wider faces, look reminiscent of what they consider to be gorillas? Why would I have contact with gorillas when I started to talk about the not being related to apes? Like I said, I literally had the O positive conversation with you guys, right? And then as I'm talking about the conversation with you, all of a sudden, everything, because I'm being defensive, right? So they always call black people apes, right? But in itself, where do they get that reference from? Because you got to ask yourself, why is it only brown people they call monkeys or apes? Because if you see monkeys that look Asian, European looking, you see monkeys of all different kinds of back. Like if you look at some of the monkeys, you can see Asian people's faces in it. You can see lunar people's faces in it. You can see brown people, Indian people, you see all of them. But why was it only linked to brown people? And why was it only linked to a certain kind of look of brown people? Like it wasn't like the regular apes, the monkeys, it was like always the gorilla that it was very reminiscent of. And then when I look at all the Olmec pictures, and then I saw, listen, what did it was when I saw the giants. Thursday, I'm gonna show the zombies. I'll show you the pictures of the Polynesian giants and how they looked. And I was like, oh my God, that's what it is. When I went to Brazil, I should have known, but I didn't know where it came from. And then I had contact with these gorilla. Listen, I don't care if you call them apes, they're apes, but gorilla, they're specifically gorillas. And they literally were walking with me as if we had a pact, like we were part of the same, we came from a place where they were backing me up. Like, why would I have that just now? Especially when I had a Zoom, a live on YouTube that was literally in dispelling that. And then also, why would on the same night, all of a sudden, all of a sudden on the same night during our Zoom, 2 a.m., big up to the Zombies in here, 2 a.m., they would take off the monkeypox vex. Now, was it YouTube who did that? Or was it the beings? Because then I had the contact. Hold on, y'all. Then I had a contact with the gorilla, the one and the misty Mexican woman. And people say, how do you think you're Mexican? I'm around Mexicans a lot, and you pick up the energy or the frequency. So the mist woman who was with the gorilla that I was with, she was a mist. Listen, I haven't ever experienced this. I haven't ever seen this. She just turned from like a green kind of mist or a yellowy mist into this beautiful Mexican woman, but she was more a stealth. Like she had the rim hat, slender figure, kind of like, it was like an old 20s. Like she looked like she was from the 20s or 30s, like almost like she had like a trench coat, like the very fine trench coat on. I can't explain it, but it's very, it's fitted to her body, very stealth, like she could move in it, not like a trench coat that was just there to wear, but something that was form-fitting to her body. She was absolutely beautiful, but she just turned from this to that, and we worked together in a group, and it made me know, because everything's relative in your life. I have different groups of people that feel more connected to me. It doesn't say there aren't a lot of different people that feel connected to me, but whenever we talk about genetics and heredity, people are connected to people who have a likeness to them, whether it's frequency or, frequency and vibration, obviously. But genetics matters. Like, it's the same reason why you'll be attracted to men who have a pheromonic harmony with you genetically. So there's some men that I'll see and they're very handsome, very good looking, just like a man with me. And I will see him and his pheromones will literally make me take the time to sit with him more, or to listen to him when he talks to me, or me be more receptive to his captivation or his allurement of me. Same vice versa. Like even with a partnership with exes, they always said it was my scent that was irresistible, the way I smelled. And it wasn't when I had perfume or anything on, it was literally my scent. So we are very pheromone harmonic people. We don't realize it because, of course, your Willy Wonka, your medical systems, they don't ever want you to talk about it. They don't want you to talk about your blood type. They don't even put it on your birth certificates anymore, because that's something they want you to mate non-harmonically. That's why a lot of children have a lot of genetic abnormalities and deficiencies, because people are just mating with people that they shouldn't be. Okay, so smell matters. Okay, it's the same with the beings. But I noticed that within my realm of people who are more allured by me, they tend to come from places where those apes also have connections, like where the Olmecs are. Big up to our Mexicano people, like in Mexico. Like I'll go to Mexico and there's always a connection. And I always say it's more because I'm Carib and we're cousins to our Incan and our Mayan family. How is because in the Caribbean, because remember I came by way of South America, but also went into Central. My mom had to remind me. That's why when people say, when you say where you're from, I said my first language is French, right? Because my mom and dad from Martinique and St. Lucia, but they came by way, my mother was a first generation from that area because her mother came from French Guyana and the tip of northern Brazil. So, but they came by way of Panama. That's why I have family in Panama. I have family in Martinique, Guadeloupe, Dominica, and it's in Venezuela. They moved from Venezuela a while ago, but that's why I have such that connection. But the Mexico's a really big, country, beautiful country. Big up to our Mexicanos. Mexicans also have connection to the Olmecs. And if you look in Mexico, the Mexicans who look more reminiscent of me, more morena skin, more copper skin. The women have the same eye setting, maybe more slanted, very busty. I'm more reminiscent of that kind of genetic group because we're mixed with those people. It's like a genetic mixing coming through the Caribbean and, you know, Central America is right there. Okay, Cartagena, which is in Colombia. That's why in Colombia you have a lot of things that are reminiscent of our Carib people. So big up to our Colombianas, right? Colombianas in here, because Colombianas, you see the women, we're all interconnected. You know, it's because we're all in that line of travel. The Americas, we're from the Americas. I always talk about a lot of us are from the Americas. And those brown people, when they told you came over from Africa, first of all, I think Africa is here. I think Egypt is here. I think they lied to us. And they told us that Africa was over there. Africa in itself, and y'all, let me make an apology to my African diaspora. I kept saying 40-something countries. My daughter, I love that my children, I'm so grateful. I kind of expanded them. My daughter had to correct me. She said, no, mommy, it's 54 countries, but it could be 55. So big up to our African diaspora, who it's 54 to 55 countries, y'all. Do you realize that that's like the majority of this planet is Africa, what they call Africa over there? But I also think that Egypt and the Nile River, that's all in the Americas. I think they lied to us. That's why I think they call us African Americans, because that's where Egypt was, ancient Kemet. And ancient Kemet, most people don't realize Egypt is a Euro-sized name, a Europeanized name. It isn't what it was called. It was called ancient Kemet, and it meant the land of the blacks. So, you know, when people say things like that, why would they call it the land of the blacks? Because that's who was living there, okay? And you couldn't tell me that how come you have pyramids over there and you had pyramids over here in Central and South America. If you go to Chichen Itza in Mexico, if you go all into Central America, if you go into Guatemala, if you go into like Grand Canyon, why in Grand Canyon did you just see a whole pharaoh with scarabs and gold all over them in the Grand Canyon if this was in Africa? Why would I look outside and look at the mountains? I'm seeing giants petrified and they look like Egyptians all in the mountains. Why do you see all that? So in it itself, oh yeah, the mummies in Utah. So I personally think that's why I say be careful and expand your consciousness. When you start going further and stop leaving your brain at the capacity of what has been socially engineered to you through false education, purposefully meant to mind control you and make everything opposite of what it is, you're going to realize that this over here in the United States is Egypt, is what you consider to be Africa. Africa in itself is another continent, but that might be reminiscent of ancient Sumer. You know what I mean? The ancient Sumer area where that was another, because remember when we were Pangea, all of the planet was in one piece in Pangea. Nothing was split. So when you talk about Africa's massive. That could be what Pangea was, like the original Pangea. And I think in anything itself, you had the beings over here that were only in the Americas, all in South, Central, and the Caribbean and Americas, because the consciousness is high in the United States. When we talk about consciousness, you got to think, beings have higher consciousness. They come from a more celestial or more connected to the galactic sex. That kind of intelligence does not come from coming more primal or more primate based. When we talk about primates, you think of them more sub-tier, but if we have beings that are insectilian, you have smaller aspects of those beings showing up, but also you have advanced beings that are insectilian that look reminiscent of the ones that are smaller, okay? So the fact of the matter is, big up to Oz. Oz just left a message on my phone. Big up to Oz. He transcended, but I tell you, Oz is taking care of our group. So when you talk about these pyramids and what shows up, I personally think, like, even yourself, like, why would you name certain places, like, why would you name them Egypt and Greece and Cairo? Like, you'll go into, like, upstate New York, you'll see all the names. Like, it's kind of interesting. Maybe it's purposefully done. Maybe it's not by chance, but why would they do that? Why would they do that? And the consciousness of the beings out of all of the planet, the most conscious beings that have a kind of heightened awareness. And I didn't realize how we're perceived by our African diaspora, from our European diaspora, from our Canadian diaspora, from our Asiatic diaspora. When I go into the other countries, there isn't any higher consciousness than what is in the United States. There isn't. When you go in there and you start to see the awareness, that means that there is some sort of, There is some sort of, this must be ground zero in the United States, because it initiates higher consciousness. Beings are, because if you go in places like China, how come no one's really conscious? We got a homegirl in Vietnam, nobody's conscious. The only consciousness that comes is when it's initiated in the United States, or it's being perpetuated to other countries and they're picking up on the consciousness and it's elevating them. So why? I'm not saying we're the best and so on, but I'm saying the higher conscious beings that are heightened in awareness to what is relative, or where we come from, or the different kinds of inception or things like that. That's really being initiated in the States. I personally think that this in the United States is ground zero. It is a pre-program. I think what happened in Egypt is happening again here. And I think we're going to see the exodus. We talk about the 410, the 10-4, and I'll talk about that now, because with the solar eclipse, I gave you a picture of during the lunar eclipse that not only did the Baltimore Bridge, and it was called the Key. Remember, the bridge in Baltimore was called Key, that was broken down, okay? But on the same day, you had P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Sean Combs' house being raided by military. But it was crazy because the only aerial shot that kept showing was the woman's figure in the middle of 4 X's. So it was the first thing I noticed. So I knew that was what they wanted us to see. They may be talking to one another, but we saw it, like I saw it. I was the first one to see it, and I said something's up with that. So I looked at it and I was like, okay, X is a Roman numeral 10, but everything's named X's. And why is there 4 of them? And then I said, ding, ding, ding. Do you guys remember when we had the whole thing on 10-4 with the calls, they were doing a testing on the phones and to call everybody on 10-4? 10-4 is like 10-4 is like a message. Remember that? And we all turned off our Wi-Fi in the house during that time. But remember, the dark Kabbalists, even AI work in polarities. We live in a polarity system here. 10-4, and now we're going to 410, right after a major solar eclipse, okay? And the reason why it's interesting is because during the lunar eclipse is when Puff Daddy, Sean Combs, shows up in his place, and you see the 4 X's, which literally could be 10, right? So 4 10s, okay?